research papers on them are kept, was bombed and destroyed. This is an actual footage of the situation after this bombing.
The forces of evil were not satisfied with merely sending events back in the historic timeline.
They also embarked on the task of presenting the local governors and rulers of the various provinces of the Empire of the Survivors as independent rulers to cover up the traces of the survivors. Second, they created tons of fictionally phantom events and persons to fill up the artificially manufactured gap of the 1000 years shift back in history and also the other shifts. That was a lot of vacant space and time in history that needed to be filled up with something artificial. That was not difficult to achieve because in various areas the people had different names for the same person. For example, Charles is in French, but the same person in England will be called Charles. And yet if we go to Spain, the same person would be Carlos. In this way, the same person would be reflected in the history of various nations under a different name, and the events that he is involved with will be similar, however not exactly the same. Many such phantom events or doubles of the same have been discovered and studied
by the historians who are contributing to the new chronology project that evolved around the work of Anatoly Fomenko.
The next task of the fabricators of the history was to ascribe the knowledge and culture that the survivors brought to various uncivilized nations and tribes as local. They always try to assure us that the tribes naturally evolved and learned, discovered how to do things just like that by themselves. The next task of the fabricators was to misrepresent the various groups of survivors and always provide some sort of explanation that these were actually local people or they came from somewhere else but that they were not actually what they were and things like that.
Twisting the original pure spiritual knowledge spread by the survivors
was vital for the parasites. On one side, they absolutely had to deprive the humans of their true spiritual path so that they can render them powerless as they forget their true nature of magical interdimensional beings. And the parasites managed to put most of us in very tiny boxes of existence and convince us that this is all that is. There is nothing outside of this small box and you live inside it. On the other side, the new parasitic colored versions of religions became very, very convenient in starting wars. And wars are favorites for the parasites. Not only the humans kill each other without any external help, but also it gives a pleasure to the parasites because that is exactly their very nature. It is one of suffering and misery and pain. As far as Christianity is concerned, there is almost no point discussing it. So much has been written, and so many people have expressed their legitimate concerns that in its most popular form nowadays, it has very little to do with the mission of Christ or his person. There is plenty of evidence and historic artifacts pointing towards the fact that Christianity, Islam, and in fact all world religions have a common
The
source.
Vedas, the religious scriptures of India, underwent relatively much less parasitic edition than the other scriptures around the world. Some minor changes could have been made in them during the times of the couple of language reforms when people were forced, the Brahmins were forced to rewrite their books in a new language. Although such reforms could have made some points blurry, like for example the count of the years, still the main message made it through.
And as far as Buddhism, Buddha himself was born and raised within the environment of Vedic culture. So, in one sense, Buddhism is kind of a branch of what we call Hinduism.
But sadly, not all Hindus today understand this true message that came to them through the centuries.
The reason for this is the heavy pollution on their consciousness on the side of the modern culture. For example, this is a set of desktop items. Most of us, when we look at them, we either understand very quickly what they mean, or we can find out quickly and easily learn what they mean. But to a member of uncontacted tribe from the Amazon jungle, these pictures will mean
Either nothing or something completely different than the meaning in the context of the IT technology that we understand so easily.
in the same way, most modern Hindus will keep at home books containing valuable knowledge, but will understand very little of it because they have lost touch with the culture that used the ideas on the basis of which this knowledge is presented. For those who are genuine seekers, I want to recommend this website as a real, genuine place to find out more about the real ideas of Sanatana Dharma, Buddhism, and yoga.